So the last time, Michael, I saw our first guest, I was in Oxnard, as we talked about in the last segment. I was in Oxnard at Cowboys camp, and we met for the first time. And Britt Johnson let me know in no uncertain terms that my Louis Vuitton sling bag was not it. Just was like all over me about this bag. She called it a purse. Really? She called it a purse. I mean, she had jokes for days. Wow. Just was like, nah, man.
This after you just.
Am I exaggerating?
Yes, I didn't clown you. He asked me to take a photo of him by the water. He was doing a little modeling session. I don't know. And he was like, oh, how are the pictures? And I was like, I think they would look better if you took your purse off. That's all I said, because it looked like he had a seatbelt on, and it's the beach and you should look free and like you're having a good time. But it just looked like it was just a little too tight. That's all I said.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. But it was
I was
the
trying to
purse
help a brother out.
You kept going out of your way to call it a purse.
There's a lot of criticism in there. There's a lot of criticism.
Exactly. You picked up on. Thank you. You picked up on it too, right? It was not subtle, but not so subtle.
I did not know what to call it.
It looks a little tight. A little too
tight. But wait,
take your purse off.
And even when I told her what to call it, she kept calling it that. But I say all that, Britt, to say that I did not bring you on this here show today for revenge. I am not here to clown you about your Cowboys, okay?
I think this is going to happen right now, but I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it.
You did a wonderful job as a Cowboys host and producer and content creator. And so I thought, who better to settle something between me and Michael? Because in the last segment, and I don't want to overreact to week one. I typically don't overreact to week one, Britt. But I don't think you can overstate the significance of a Dak Prescott 6 to 8 week injury, thumb surgery required, given all the problems that the Cowboys already had on the offensive side of the football. So if I'm a Cowboys fan, yeah, I'm pushing the panic button right now. What say you?
I'm not pushing the panic button at all, just because I was a Cowboys fan in 2016 when we lost Tony Romo in the preseason. And we thought we didn't have any quarterback because Kellen Moore, who's now the offensive coordinator there, was a backup quarterback. He got hurt, and we had another guy, I think Jake McCowan was there, and he didn't want to sign the deal. Didn't work out, and we had like our fourth string quarterback, Dak Prescott, end up starting in week one, and we went 13-3 that season. So I'm not going to push the panic button just yet. I saw a lot of good things during training camp. I met you at training camp. You were there maybe a day or two. I don't know if you saw as much as I did, but I saw a lot of good things in training camps where I'm not too worried about it just yet.
Don't know if you saw as much as I did. Here we go. You were there a day or two.
Well, I got to keep 1-2.
The shots, man, the barbs are sharp.
And it's just real. The delivery is the best part.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just go back to your precedent here for your positivity. 2016, Dak Prescott, fourth round pick. And not to mention all the quarterbacks that the Cowboys wanted to draft, and they settled for Dak Prescott.
Right.
We all remember the story well, and we know what happened. So are you telling me, am I to take from that Cooper Rush is the next Dak Prescott? That's not what you're saying.
No, that's not exactly what I'm saying. But I mean, yesterday Dak Prescott didn't look great himself. He, I think, was 14-29, and 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. So I wasn't too excited about what he did yesterday in the first place. And we're looking at a receiving core that is very young, that really didn't get any time with Dak Prescott, which is, I think, why we had so many issues yesterday, because there was no chemistry there. The only guy that really even worked with Dak Prescott prior to was CeeDee Lamb. And really, CeeDee Lamb's first year with Dak was last year. Noah Brown had a couple, plays and stuff with Dak last year, but we didn't really see Noah Brown either. So you're working with receivers that, guess what, worked with Cooper Rush during the preseason.
I think if y'all had Cooper Kupp at quarterback, I might feel different.
That would be great. Can Micah Parsons play quarterback? Can we see if that's something that can happen? Right. Trayvon actually was in training camp this year taking some, drills with the quarterbacks, and he was actually pretty accurate. So, hey, I'm not putting it past anybody on our team at this point, but Cooper Rush does have better chemistry with guys like Dennis Houston and with Tolbert and these young guys, because that's who they went up against and that's who they had as their quarterback, along with Will Grier and obviously Ben DiNucci in there a little bit too. So I'm not too worried about it because Dak hasn't built up that chemistry at this point with those young guys, which is why we saw the problems we saw yesterday.
Okay. All right, Britt, just so we're clear. So if the Cowboys had an opportunity to get Jimmy Garoppolo or Mason Rudolph, I know it's a big difference, or somebody, a quarterback from another organization, you wouldn't be as excited about that.
Cam Newton's at home chilling, Mike.
Available. You wouldn't be as excited about that as you are the possibility of, Cooper Rush taking over with guys he already knows.
Now, Cam Newton's a different story. I was actually trying to gun for Cam Newton last year, and I wished he would have signed with the Cowboys last year, but I'm a huge Cam Newton fan, so that's just me. But Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously that's something I even thought about as just being a fan yesterday, like, oh, this is a potential. This is something that could happen. But when you think about the chemistry, and you think about the time frame that Dak is going to be gone, you're kind of in the middle. It's like, I don't know if Cooper Rush can go 2 months and be able to carry the team for 2 months. He can win a couple games, yes, but is it going to be 2 months? Is it going to be longer? We don't even know if that 6 to 8 weeks thing is a definite situation. Like, obviously, we're still waiting right now for the results from Dak's surgery. How long is it going to be? They keep saying it was a clean fracture and it should be okay, but you never know with injuries like that. So right now, let's go with Cooper Rush, see what he does for the next couple weeks. The thing that is positive with the Cowboys is we do have cap space. So if we need to bring somebody in, if we need to work a trade in some capacity, I think the Cowboys would be able to get that done.
Are you looking at that division? When you look at that division, I said to Mike earlier, it's not like I'm blown away by any team in the division compared to the Cowboys. And that includes the Eagles, who had one hell of an offseason and scored 38 points yesterday. But do you look at that division and say, even without Dak, if we play games with the backup quarterback versus the NFC East, we can be competitive? Do you feel that way or not so much?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we're now in last place in the NFC East. Unfortunately, everybody in the NFC East won yesterday besides the Dallas Cowboys, but we swept the NFC East last year. We won every single game against our division last year, and I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference. And look at the game yesterday with the Cowboys anyway. We lost, yes. We lost Dak Prescott, yes. Dak Prescott didn't have a good game anyway, but we also held Tom Brady to 1 touchdown. We were able to not do great on the run, but even so, Leonard Fournette did not score a touchdown yesterday. So that's a huge positive for me. And I think what our defense has done already and what they'll continue to do, and with the pieces with the offensive line kind of getting fixed, I think that that's something that we'll be able to take care of. And the NFC East is always, years prior, before it was a 17-game season, it was the division winner would be an 8-18 half the time anyway, to be honest. So I'm not too nervous about the NFC East and being able to still win that and being competitive in the NFC East.
Yeah, and Britt, I only spent, 1 or 2 days in Oxnard, but what was clear is that the Cowboys, unlike previous years, and, we saw this, start last year and into the offseason, are a defensive oriented team. That's the identity of that team is now its defense. So in all seriousness, that defense can keep them in games. And when it comes to upgrading the quarterback situation, I guess to your point about the chemistry with Cooper Rush, they've long since decided that if something were to happen to Dak, that Cooper Rush was their backup. If they wanted to upgrade the backup position, they would have done that already. So to bring in a Jimmy Garoppolo or bring in a Mason Rudolph or anybody else right now, what does that say about their organizational foresight or about what they think of Cooper Rush if now that they have to play their backup, they're like, on second thought, we're going to go get somebody from the outside. So it almost feels like they've already decided that Cooper Rush was the person that they trusted. Right.
I agree.
But where I still struggle, though, is okay, let's say Cooper Rush, and he was competent the last time we saw him play. I think it was the Vikings? He was competent the last time we saw him play. Okay, let's say you think Cooper Rush can hold it down. Let's say the wide receivers, they'll get better with the return of Michael Gallup and eventually James Washington.
James Washington.
All right, I give you all of that. That offensive line, though, Tyron Smith ain't gonna be back for a while. That just seems like too much of a mess, and I would feel better about an inexperienced quarterback stepping in if I knew that his protection and, by extension, his running game would inspire more confidence. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I still want to see what we do with Marcus Peters. You know, he's coming in there, and yes, he might just be there for depth and that kind of situation. But I want to see what he does, even if it's just in a sense that he's going to be there to coach up Tyler Smith. And, you know, seeing what Matt Forniak did yesterday, and he's actually supposed to be a center. He doesn't play that side, and the best thing you hear about offensive linemen is to never hear their name. I didn't hear his name yesterday, so that means he did a pretty decent job. Tyler Smith, he had a couple hiccups in the beginning of the game, but he kind of started finding his footwork. And Tyler Biadasz, who was actually, yes, but Connor McGovern, Stephen Jones said on The Fan earlier today that he thinks it's just going to be a 1 to 2 week situation. So I think Connor McGovern should be coming back soon anyway, so I'm not too worried about that. Terrence Steele, obviously, we need to clean those up with the penalties and stuff like that. Last year, it was Connor McGovern that had the issues with the penalties, and it was Connor Williams before that had the issues with the penalties, and now we're moving to Terrence Steele. So we got to fix those. Huge issue with the penalties on the offensive line yesterday, but they were switching up a lot of stuff at the last minute. So I feel like that's just going to work itself out, and you don't want to change the offensive line too much because it's all about their cadence. It's all about, you know, even their breath with each other, and they kind of become one unit. So we don't want to mess that up too much. And yesterday there was a lot of almost moving pieces in that offensive line. And, you know, once we figure out who our offensive line is going to be and what role Peters is going to play in that situation, I think it'll just fix itself. What we saw from Zeke yesterday was huge in his pass block protection and being able to do that. And unfortunately, Kellen Moore didn't notice that as much as the rest of us noticed it, because every time we needed Zeke in those moments, he took Zeke out and put Tony Pollard in, and Tony Pollard is not good.
Pollard in pass pro,
right.
Pollard in pass pro is like me wearing a sling bag, you know, just
wow.
Yes,
that's not it.
That's
not it.
Nice.
Yeah, that's not it.
Nice. Bring it back full circle. And here's the good news. And Britt, tell me you agree. It's the good news. If it turns out to be a struggle for the Cowboys, well, that buys Mike McCarthy another year as the head coach. You can't hold this against McCarthy.
Does it, though?
Let's say they fall apart.
It doesn't.
They go 1-7. They go 1-7, 2-6. Bring back Mike. Bring back Mike.
Mike McCarthy is holding on for dear life right now. Right now, he's holding on for dear life. And if it doesn't, I don't think he would make it through the whole season if something doesn't change in the next 3 or 4 weeks. It doesn't matter.
The guy hit his thumb. Somebody hit his thumb. McCarthy, that's not his fault.
What happened in the 3 quarters before that? 134 yards. That's not acceptable. What happened in the 3 quarters before that? I could see if he hurt his thumb in the first quarter and then the game panned out like it did. But that was the game anyway.
Mike McCarthy's being bullied. Mike McCarthy he's that kid. He is being bullied by Cowboys fans and media.
No.
Everything's his fault. Everything's Mike McCarthy's fault. Stuff that he don't even have anything to do with.
So, hey, Brett, last thing before we let you go. Again, timetable's not exactly firm, and you know, obviously that could move, but give me a rough guess of what you think the Cowboys' record could be when Dak Prescott returns.
Okay, I would say, Bengals is a huge game next week, and then after that we have, I believe, the Giants in week 3, which is going to be our first divisional game. So I'm going to go, we got Rams coming up too in these next couple months. I would say Cowboys would be maybe 5-3 or 4-4 if we go 2 months.
You and Michael Holley. All right. Hey, you know what? I didn't listen to you about the man bag. I'm gonna listen to you about the Cowboys. I'm gonna back away from the panic button.
Yeah.
I'm on y'all behalf. I'm gonna back away from it. I'm gonna back away.
It's week 1. Technically, I consider this week the 4th preseason week that we missed out on. So.
It's Dak Prescott.
We're gonna be okay.
It's Dak Prescott. I don't care what it is. Okay. Britt, come back.
I believe in our defense. And again, before this season started, I thought it was going to be a run-first offense. And all you got to do is be able to pass it to somebody, toss it off to somebody.
If I would have stayed at camp for longer than 2 days, maybe I would have the sense about the situation that you do. Come back again sometime.
I believe. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
We appreciate you.
Hey, thanks for watching Brother from Another on YouTube. Make sure you hit subscribe before you leave, and be sure to watch us 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Peacock. Appreciate you.